she was also cut very deeply on her neck. But this subscriber says that he rushed home to Vivian, and then she took him to get his injuries looked at the doctor. So this subscriber is saying that the fight between the two of them never happened. The fight with the wine glass never happened. And that Fergus killed Beth, got some injuries, and then went home. Vivian took him to the hospital, and then he's saying that, I keep saying he, I'm not sure if the subscriber, how they identify. But at around 3 in the morning, Fergus persuaded Vivian to help him cover up the murder because they were in the middle of landing a multi-million-dollar deal for the Grand Prix motorcycle race, of which Vivian was a shareholder. She got cold feet and said that she was going to the police, but then Fergus murdered her. And they say that Fergus buried her under the racetrack. And I think I mentioned in the video that someone witnessed a strange figure on a bike. So this subscriber is saying that Fergus had the bike on the back of the Land Cruiser and then rode the bike away back to the farm. And then they're saying that the brother and sister were complicit in the murder and helped him cover it up. So I found that to be an extremely interesting theory, and I don't know, I appreciate the subscribers' take on this. The only thing that I just thought of is, how do you explain the blood, the type A blood that was at the crime scene, and also the cigarettes at the crime scene, but they were unable to find any DNA on the cigarettes, and Fergus could have easily placed those cigarettes there to frame Vivian. So maybe he was planning the whole time to frame Vivian, but needed her to help him cover it up in the beginning. I don't know. As I start to think about it more and more, it becomes more and more confusing. So anyway, thank you, DJIZZAH. I appreciate your insight, and I appreciate the comment. The comment is on that video as well if you guys want to read it. I didn't read it word for word. Okay, so let's get into what this video is about here. So today I'm going to cover Russell Williams's police interview. So I've heard of this case before, but I've never read the police interview. Russell Williams is a former colonel in the Canadian Forces. I'm going to give you a brief overview of the case. He was convicted of sexual assault, 2 counts of first-degree murder, 2 counts of forcible confinement, 84 counts of breaking and entering. On October 21st, 2010, he was sentenced to 2 life sentences for 10 years started in September 2007, and between September 2007 and November 2009, he broke into 82 homes, 61 of which went unreported or undetected. During the break-ins, he would steal underwear from women and girls, take photos of himself in the underwear, pleasure closes to interview for NIS for top secret clearance. Alright, well, again, Russell, I appreciate you coming in. An investigation like this, I mean, I'm sure you can appreciate it's been a big news story, especially down near Belleville. And obviously our approach in cases like this is that we don't give up on somebody being alive until we get evidence that they're not. So, because of that, we're treating Jessica's case as an emergent situation, obviously. So I guess maybe they didn't find the body, but they found his tire marks at her house. I was mistaken there, sorry. The detective said, so we're fast-forwarding things that we might normally take our time with. And that's why we're here on a Sunday afternoon. So I appreciate it. We're going to do a pretty thorough interview today, and the reason for that is because the last thing we want is to be calling people back again and again and again. So what we're going to do is we're going to go over a number of things, and I'm going to explain what all those are to you. Sorry. Okay. The detective says, I'm a big coffee guy. I don't know if you're a coffee guy or not. Russell says, I'm a coffee guy. Actually, yeah. The detective says, I don't want to drink it in front of you, so, alright, go ahead. I could definitely use a coffee. Are they black? Yeah, they're black with sugar. You could definitely, well, I just started my gum, so I'll probably just have it in a little bit. Sorry, you what? Gum. Oh, okay, the detective laughs. I just put a piece of gum in. There's napkins here if you want to toss it or whatever. I appreciate that. Alright, anyway, like I said, this interview is going to be very thorough. But again, I have a simple rule when I talk to people. I'm sure you're the same way. I treat people, everybody, with respect, and I'll ask that you do the same for me. So what we're going to do is we're going to start off by going through what your rights are, just like everybody else. Have you been read your rights before? No. I'm sure you've seen it on TV a whole bunch of times. Well, yeah. But it's usually the American version, so I'll go over it with you briefly, okay? Basically, in Canada, as you know, our rights are guaranteed under the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. Just to avoid any confusion, because some people do get confused when they're talked to by the police, you know that you're not under arrest for today, okay? Anytime you feel that you want to leave here, you're free to do so. The door is not locked. Teresa will walk you down to the lobby anytime you want. If there's something that comes up in our interview today that you feel you want to talk to a lawyer about, you just let me know. Alright, and the reason for that is when I explain to you exactly what's going on here about Jessica Lloyd is about 4 cases that we're currently investigating. And essentially what's happened over the past about 4 or 5 months, there have been 4 occurrences that we're looking into. 2 of those occurrences occurred in September of 2009. And very briefly, they were in the Tweed area. They involved somebody entering 2 different women's houses in the evening hours and committing sexual acts. Okay, so November 2009, a young lady by the name of Marie France Como. Russell Williams interjects and says, one of my people, yeah, referring to the military. The detective says, yeah, she was found murdered in her home in Brighton, and we believe that there was a sexual component to that crime as well. And then, most recently, we have Jessica Lloyd's disappearance. you want to take advantage of that at any point, please let me know. Sure. Is there any reason you want to call a lawyer now? No? Okay. A couple other fairly simple and straightforward things that you probably understand, but we have to go over them, is that you don't have to speak to me today, okay? And the reason for that is because the law considers me to be what we refer to as a person of authority. Probably similar to what you may be considered at the military base. Because of that, I can be compelled to appear before any judge in the country, basically, to account for what takes place here today between you and I, okay? And that's the reason why everything's recorded, because there can't be a more accurate record than that, right? So another thing I want to make sure you understand is that, you mentioned a second ago about Miss Como being one of your work associates. So I don't know what happened since November on the military side of things, but what we want to make people clear on is that if you've been spoken to by any person in authority or any police officer about any of those cases, I don't want what they may have said to you to make you feel influenced or compelled to say anything to me, okay? Whatever you might have felt influenced or compelled to say to them earlier, you don't have to repeat to me. You don't have to say anything further, okay? But obviously, what you do say, for the third time is being recorded. So, Russell Williams says, understood. These first two attacks that happened, they happened not far from my place in Tweed. Well, the second one did. We didn't even know the first one had happened, but I understand that was reasonably close as well. But the second one was very close. So certainly at the time, the OPP went door to door, and within a couple of days, probably the same night. So I spoke with a couple officers back then. The detective says, yes, I'm aware of that from looking at the different cases, and essentially, Russell, in a nutshell, that's what we wanted to do. That's what we want to talk to you about. Those 4 cases are a concern to us. And you've kind of almost hit the nail on the head about some of our issues that kind of make us want to talk to you, okay? Because essentially, there's a connection between you and all 4 of those cases. Would you agree, geographically? And yeah, I guess I drive past there, yeah. I would say there's a connection, yeah. Detective says, yeah, and that's why, I'll be quite frank with you, that's why things kind of evolved when the officers talked to you Thursday night. We kind of went from there because when I think you discussed with the fact that you were a colonel at the base, you were in uniform. So essentially, the connection with Miss Como was made, and I believe you're a door or 2 down from one of the 2 incidents. In Tweed, 3 doors down, yeah. Very close, absolutely. Yeah, exactly. So, those are some of the issues I want to discuss with you. Okay, so just getting back, those Russell says it's tough to undo the rumor mill once it gets started, but I appreciate that. So this is further along in the interview. Now that you've had some time to, and I know we've been throwing a lot of things at you here, but now that you've had some time to think about things, is there anything that you're concerned about? Are you concerned about that your DNA matching anything at the 4 residences? No. Detective, is there, I guess, let me explain what I'm getting at here. This is a significant investigation, as you can imagine, but that DNA is going to be significant in our investigation, quite possibly to help you, and quite possibly to help us. I don't know yet. I don't know what the result is yet, but I'll go back to the sample I gave you, because they're very similar. The example I gave you, because they're very similar. And you talked about the idea of discretion here. You talked about the idea that, well, I think hopefully you appreciate the fact of how we approached you here. And we have no issues with that. We talked recently about the whole idea of any unusual sex act in your history. But another thing can often happen in cases like this is that people become concerned about things like extramarital affairs, indiscretions along those lines. Is there any contact that you might have had with any of those 4 women that you may not want your wife to be aware of? Anything like that that we should know about to try to explain your DNA away? Russell Williams inhales deeply, and then he says, absolutely not. Detective, can you think of any reason why we would find your DNA in any of those residences? No. Let's focus on, for instance, this first house. Let me just check the name here, make sure I've got the address. Talking about the house that was just a couple doors down from you, the one in Tweed. Lori, I don't know her last name. I don't know. The detective says Massacoti. Russell says, I don't even know what her last name is, but there's the woman down the road, 3 doors down. Her name was Lori. I don't know her last name. Alright, I'll just make sure we're on the same page here. My understanding is that she lived at 76 Cozy Cove. So she would be the one, the second incident on your road there. A couple doors down. Have you ever been in her house? No. We met her once. I think the first summer we were there, so in 2004. Okay, that's what I'm getting at. Again, this is a credibility issue. Russell, because I believe I don't want to come and see you 2 weeks from now and say, Russ, our CSI people were in that house. Are you familiar with how DNA works? I think so, yes. Well, one of the challenges we have in 2010, DNA has become so precise. I guess the best way to explain it is, I can think of 15 years ago when I started in violent crime investigations. And for us to get a DNA match, the sample we had to find was, probably would have filled to half on one of these cups. Because they destroy so much of the sample and the testing somebody's residence, quite possibly, quite innocently, your DNA could be in that residence. Has there ever been a time that you've been in there? No. Okay, what about the other lady down the road? So you're quite positive there'd be no reason why your DNA would be any of those 3 locations. Did you know Jessica Lloyd, even in passing, for any reason? No, I didn't hear her name until it was on the news. Okay, and the reason I'm asking you that is because I know you were asked that question Thursday night. And sometimes we find, and again, this is one of those situations that can sometimes cause us to get into lengthy investigation, is somebody that maybe doesn't deserve it. But what can happen sometimes is they get stopped by the police like you did, and they get asked a question, and people can be nervous when they get stopped by the police, okay? So they blurt out an answer, and they start driving away, and they're all like, why did I do that? Because the problem is that once they get asked again, they feel compelled to maintain that answer for fear that if they change their answer, somebody could find that. Do you understand what I'm saying? I do. Okay, so I want to make sure that's not happening here. I don't care what you said to the other officers on Thursday. If there's any communication or contact between you and Jessica Lloyd, I need to know. You saw her picture, right? Yes, around town. Yes, I saw it. Okay, have you ever seen her before? I don't. No, I would say I have not. Okay, alright. And you mentioned something about doing some renovations at your property in Tweed there, right? I think you said something earlier about tearing up carpet. Correct me if I'm wrong, but yes. When did all that happen? In 2004 or 2005? Okay, any recent renovations? No. Just want to make sure I'm covering all the bases here. What kind of tires do you have on your Pathfinder? Okay, here we go. I think they're Toyo. Okay, but do you have a brand name or it's that? What about the make? I'm sorry, I don't. The make is Toyo. I don't know the model. Okay, I'll read this off to you, see if it rings a bell. You ever heard of this Toyo Open Country HTS? That sounds right. Does that make sense? Yeah. Okay. When did you have those tires put on your Pathfinder? Well, it's the second version we've had of them, so I think it might have been this past fall. They replaced other ones we had on the same, well, I can't say they were the same exactly, the same model, but our dealership here in Ottawa says they're very popular for the Pathfinder, so, and they were good, they lasted a long time. Alright, you were talking about the whole idea of MPs helping us with our investigation. Stuff like this, you have the same system as we do at our headquarters with the swipe cards. One of the things one of our investigators did is they made a call while I was talking to you there because we're trying to work through that week of the 23rd of November. The 23rd being Monday and the 24th being Tuesday. So what they've told 70 people working on this case, so there's a lot of stuff happening. So let me go out and see what's happening, and then I'll come back in and we'll hopefully continue, okay? The detective says, I told you when I came here that I'll treat you with respect, and I've asked you to do the same for me. We talked about the whole idea of how we've approached you here today, trying to be as discreet as possible. But the problem is, Russell, is every time I walk out of this room, there's another issue that comes up. And it's not issues that point away from you, it's issues that point at you, okay? And I want you to see what I mean. Alright, this is the footwear impression of the person who approached the rear of Jessica Lloyd's house on the evening of the 28th and 29th of January. Okay, now I want you to keep in mind that this is slightly smaller, okay, than scale. Alright, it's not to scale. The footwear is actually bigger. If you look here on the ruler, you'll see that 1 inch is just slightly smaller than an actual inch. Okay. Alright, but this is the way it prints off on your computer. I'll move this over so you can see what I mean. Essentially, when you're dealing with footwear impressions, we have a gentleman on the OPP who's basically world-renowned, and his name is John Norman. And essentially, with footwear impressions, you're in a situation where you're pretty much in the area of fingerprints. And essentially, what we're talking about here is especially when you start adding other pieces of information that support an investigative position. This is a photocopy of the boot that you took off your foot just a little while ago. Okay, now I'm not an expert in footwear impressions. I rely on the experts. Footwear impressions are very much like a fingerprint. And look at this print again. And this one print this person walked through. There's several different prints to compare. So we're going to get features off one print to compare features off another print to compare. These are identical, okay? Your vehicle drove up the side of Jessica Lloyd's house. Your boots walked to the back of Jessica Lloyd's house on the evening of the 28th and 29th of January, okay? You want discretion. We need to have some honesty, okay? Because this is getting out of control really fast, Russell. Really, really fast. At this point, Russell is sniffing. He's going and humming. It's hard to whisper a sound. The detective says, this is getting beyond my control, alright? I came here a few hours ago, and I called you the way I called you today because I wanted to give you the benefit of the doubt. But right now, there's a warrant being executed at your residence in Ottawa, so your wife now knows what's going on, and there's a search warrant being executed at your residence in Tweed, and your vehicles have been seized, okay? You and I both know they're going to find evidence that links you to these situations, okay? You and I both know that the unknown offender male DNA on Marie Branscomo's body is going to be matched to you. Quite possible before the evening's over, okay? This is a major investigation. The Center see that in you. If I saw that in you, I wouldn't even be back in here talking to you, quite frankly, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe you got me fooled, I don't know. This is over, and it can have a bad ending where Jessica's parents continue wondering where her daughter is lying. Russell sighs. I don't know, I mean, obviously there's a huge search still underway, and it will continue. It will continue until her body's found. That might even happen tonight, for all I know. Once that happens, then I don't know what other cards you'd have to play. What are you going to do? What are we going to do? Russell Williams says, call me Russ, please. Okay, what are we going to do, Russ? Is Jessica somewhere we can find her easily? Like, is it something where I can just make a call and tell somebody to go to a location? They're going to find her, or is it something where we have to go and take a walk? Which direction are we heading in here? Russ, maybe this would help. Can you tell me what the issue is you're struggling with? What's the issue you're struggling with? Russell says, it's hard to believe that this is happening. Why is it hard to believe? It's just hard to believe. Whose decision was it? Well, we're going to find out the answer to this anyway, but whose decision was it to issue the directive to the base personnel that nobody had to speak to the police and to seek legal counsel before they were questioned? Because my understanding is that direction came from somebody that reports to you. What do you think they're going to say? What do you think they're going to say? Let's take a step back for a second, okay? I really don't think it benefits you or makes you look any better to start debating the little issues. Okay, so things are getting intense here, but I am going to move forward. So Russell says, when you talk about perception, my only two immediate concerns from a perception perspective are what my wife must be going through right now and the impact this is going to have on the Canadian forces. Where do we go, Russ? Is there anything you want from me? Is there anything you want me to explain? Is there something missing that you're struggling with that I can shed some light on for you? No, I'm just struggling with how upset my wife is right now. So, finally, Russell says, I want to minimize the impact on my wife. So how do we do that? The detective says, you start.